If you're trying to shed a few pounds, I'm going to show you exactly how you need to set up your diet in this video using 3 different options. Option 1 is going to be relatively straightforward and will require minimal tracking. Option 2 is going to be a little bit more complicated, but you can be quite individualized and personal with this. And option 3 is going to be very similar to option 2, but it's using the MARCHON Training App for the nutrition features within it. So just to cover a couple of very basic points, just so everyone's on the same page, in order for us to lose body fat, we need to be in a slight calorie deficit. So all that matters is that we're eating slightly less calories than what we're burning total within the day, and we can do that either by increasing our activity, or we can do that by reducing the amount of food that we intake from our current maintenance. So option 1, this is going to require minimal tracking. What you're going to need to do, ideally, is track your body weight every day. Now, if you're someone that has a bad relationship with tracking your weight daily, you can do it weekly, but tracking it daily and then creating a weekly average is going to be a much more accurate way for you to determine whether you have gradually been losing weight over the week or whether you've been staying the same. So if we're tracking our body weight daily, you're going to see a lot of fluctuations anyway. That could be because of the amount of carbohydrates you've eaten, that could be the amount of water that you've consumed, it could be the amount of exercise that you're doing, your stress levels, your sleep, where you are in your menstrual cycle. All of these things will have a role to play in your weight that day. So daily fluctuations is not what we're worrying about. We're looking at the weekly average from week to week. So all you're going to do is take your 7 days worth of readings within the week, add them all up, divide them by 7, and that will give you your weekly average, and then you compare that from week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3, and seeing whether you are roughly staying the same would mean you're in maintenance. If you're losing weight slightly, you're in a calorie deficit, and if you're gaining slightly, you're probably in a slight calorie surplus. So if after a week of you tracking your body weight daily, your body weight has roughly stayed the same, you haven't been trending down or trending up, we can probably say that you're roughly around maintenance. So you're eating roughly the same as what you're expending. So all you're going to do is create a 200 to 300 calorie deficit. Now the way that you could do that is either by taking out 1 or 2 snacks, you could reduce some of the carbohydrates that you're eating within a meal, or you could increase your activity by either increasing your steps, maybe doing an easy conditioning session on top of what your weekly average looks like right now. So just to recap in terms of how you can create a deficit, you can either increase your activity or you can reduce your food. There'll be some people that would rather take food away. I personally would much rather increase my activity rather than taking loads of food away. But all that matters is you're creating a 200 to 300 calorie deficit. That's going to allow you to slowly, gradually lose body weight or lose body fat over the course of the week. In terms of a rate of weight loss, what we're looking for is about 0.25 to a kilo a week. Now that's quite a big range. Why this might change is that at the start of your diet, you might find that you lose weight quite quickly. And that's normal. Things like water, carbohydrates, you're probably reducing the amount of glycogen and therefore the amount of water that's being held in your muscles, in your liver, etc. So your body weight will start to drop naturally. As you start to get into that diet, you might then find that you start to tail off and you slow down a little bit in that rate of weight loss. So the first week or 2 might not be that much of an indication. The other thing that might change is how big you are as a person. So if you're 120, 130 kg bloke, you're probably going to lose weight at quite a fast rate if we're creating a deficit. If you're a 50 kg woman, you might find that that rate of weight loss might be a lot smaller. So just take that into account when you are looking at how much you're losing weight. If you're on the smaller side, it's probably going to be a smaller change, and if you're on the bigger side, it's probably going to be a large change. So that's option 1. Okay, option 2, this is where a little bit of maths come into play, so stick with me. What you want to be doing for the first week is tracking your food and your weight. The reason why you want to track your food is so that you can get an understanding of roughly how many calories you're eating right now and looking at what your weight is. Now we know from option 1 that if your weight has roughly stayed the same, without tracking your food, you know you're roughly at about maintenance. But the reason we want to track your food, one is just to see what trends we're at, build a bit of awareness in terms of what you're eating, what sort of things you're eating, but also to look at the macros, looking at how many grams of protein you're eating within a day and within a week, looking at how many grams of fat, looking at how many grams of carbs. That's going to give us a good indication as to what we're doing and how we can maybe tweak that to optimize our diet. So obviously we're going to be ideally tracking your weight daily. as well as tracking your food. After the week, look at where your calories are, how many fluctuations there have been over the day, and then look at where your weight is. And again, if you're roughly staying the same in terms of food and weight, probably means that you're about maintenance calories. Now, looking at the macros, what we want to see is your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. A general rule of thumb, we can be very broad in our range, and there's a lot of prescriptions out there. We could be like 1.4 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, all the way up to like 2.2, 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. That's a big range. Now, what I would say, just for ease, you're probably good at aiming about 2 grams of protein. There isn't much more reason for you to eat any more than that, unless you're a very big person aiming for like 2.2 potentially, but really a nice easy number to remember is 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is what you want to look for. And I'm going to talk about a case study in a second. The next thing is to look for in those macros is we want to be having about 1 gram to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight for fat. Now, why there's a range here, typically for blokes, we're looking for about 1 gram. For women, we're looking for about 1.5 grams. Reason why is because women's hormonal cycle is very, very important, and we want to make sure that if we're bringing that fat down too low, it will impact on things like menstrual cycle, which is not something that we want to do. Obviously, if you bring your fat down too low with a man, it's going to affect your hormones as well. I've personally brought my fat down to 0.5 grams, and I couldn't get a boner for several months. So knowing that, or being aware of that, is that if you bring your fat down too low, it is going to impact on your hormones. It might allow you to eat a little bit more protein or a little bit more carbs, but it could also be detrimental. So somewhere between 1 to 1.5 grams of fat per kilogram of body weight there. Then the rest should be coming from carbs, rather than giving an exact carb prescription. So once we've tracked our food and our weight for a week and we're roughly remaining the same, we then probably want to create somewhere between a 10 to 15% deficit for you to lose body fat. So an example here, if we've got a 90 kg man, and they've got 3,000 calories roughly at maintenance, that's on a training day. 2,700 calories would be a 10% deficit, so that's what we're gonna try and aim for in terms of calories. From a macro breakdown perspective, we want about 180 grams of protein, because that's 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, so he's a 90 kg man, is 180 grams of protein. He's a 90 kg man, so we want 90 grams of fat, and then the rest of his calories are coming from carbs, but how do we work that out? So just quickly to remember, protein, there are 4 calories per gram of protein. Fats, there are 9 calories per gram of fat, and carbs, there are 4 as well. So if we do a little bit of maths, 180 times 4 is 720 calories. That's how many calories are coming from protein. His fats, 90 grams of fat, so 90 times 9 is going to be 810 calories. If we add those up together, his protein and fats in terms of total calories, that's 1,530 calories. Now, if we take away what we're looking for in terms of those those deficit calories is 2,700 minus 1,530, that gives us 1,170. So 1,170 calories is what we want our carbohydrates to come from to make up that 2,700. You then divide that by 4, because there are 4 calories per every gram of carbohydrate, and that is going to give you 292 grams of carbs. So therefore you've got 180 grams of protein, 90 grams of fat, and then 292 grams of carbs. So all we're doing here is working out your 2 grams per kg of body weight protein, your 1 gram or 1.5 if you're a female for women for the fat, and then the rest of your calories are coming from carbohydrates. So that's number 2. Option number 3 is going to be using the MARCHON Training App. So we're going to walk through this as we go. So if I go onto my MARCHON Training App now, and I go onto the nutrition tab at the bottom, I have my settings here. So the first thing that you can do is you can go into your nutrition goal and decide what you want. So we've got maintenance, we've got moderate fat loss, and that's what we want to aim for. A moderate fat loss, we're looking for a fat loss phase of maybe 12 to 16 weeks. We don't want to be going much more than that. So aiming for 0.5 of a body weight loss per week. So if we go into that, choose that. My current weight, 90 kg, we've got that already. We're on the GAIN program. Obviously, you'd be mad if you weren't. Activity level, for me, I'm hitting about 10,000 steps a day typically, so I'm going to moderate. Sessions per week, I'm doing 5. Meals, I like to have 4 meals within the day. I don't typically have many snacks. If I do, it'll be a piece of fruit, so I don't typically count that too much. So the other thing that we can do here in terms of our macro distribution is decide where we want our proteins, carbs, and fats to fall. So we can see here in our protein, if I want to go up to 190, I'm going to bring my carbs down a little bit, so I'm at 100%, 32% there, boom. Calorie distribution. Now, if we want to, we can change this to training focused, we can change this to social, so you're backlogging some calories for the weekend, that's up to you, or you can go into even, which is what I'm typically going to do here, and just have it distributed over the week. You can adjust your structure with your meal timings, so when you want that based on when you train. So I typically have breakfast in the morning, I'll then train at 10:30, and then I'll have my meals after that from there. So that's nice and simple. Progress photos we can obviously track as we go. Macros, this is what we've got. So we've got 192 grams of carbs, 192 grams of protein, 187 grams of carbs, and 90 grams of fat. Suggested meals, we're looking at 583 calories. Your maintenance is 2,744 calories. So then our daily target is going to be 2,332 calories. From a meal plan perspective, this is the great option that we have within the MARCHON Training app. So you can log and track all of your food within there using AI. So if I go into what I would typically have for breakfast, 1 sesame bagel, 2 pieces of back bacon, 2 eggs, 10 grams of butter. So that's my usual breakfast is a breakfast bagel, couple pieces of bacon, couple pieces of egg. So in there, my calories, I've got 583 calories, 48 grams of protein, 47 grams of carbs, and 23 grams of fat, which is nice. You can then adjust this if you want to, if you're like, oh, it's a fatty bit of bacon, etc., and then you can go from there. So my meal's in there already, which is nice. So if you want to use MyFitnessPal and you're just using this as a calorie calculator, you can, but this is a great way if you haven't done a lot of tracking to just be able to AI it, and then you don't have to worry about it, and you can adjust it if you need to. So whether it's that you use this option 1, it's going to be the easiest and the most straightforward for you to do. This is going to be a lot more sort of like intuitive, a very simple way for you to do it. If you don't want to track your food, you can just see where your weight's at and just look at increasing your activity, or you're reducing your diet a little bit, or the food that you're taking in. Option 2 is going to be a little bit more manual, and this is just you figuring out what works best for you and where you are right now based off of your current eating patterns, all of those things. It's going to give you a really good indication as to what you're doing right now and just making some small tweaks rather than throwing the kitchen sink at it. And then option 3, if you don't want to do the maths and you just want to be told what it is that you need to do, this is going to be a great option for you to take the thought process out. You just punch your numbers in and then attack it. So 3 different options here. I have done a mixture between these 2. So I've seen what option 3 was for me, I've seen what option 2 is, and what I'm actually at is about 2,600 calories. I'm eating about 200 grams of protein because I'm a slightly heavier guy. I'm more about 97, 98 kg right now, but I'm aiming to get around 92 kilograms of body weight is what I'm gunning for. So my protein right now is about 200, my fat is around 95, and then the rest of my carbs are coming from that. I might have a little bit of fluctuation in terms of my activity, so I've had a bigger hard conditioning day, I might eat slightly more carbs. If I've had an easier full body session, or I haven't moved as much throughout the day, I might have a slightly lower calorie target. But it's important, or what's really good with the MARCHON Training app is that you get a bit of a range. So remembering that just because you've got a deficit number doesn't mean that you have to eat at that number. Anything from maintenance and below, you're not going to be gaining weight, you're going to continue to lose weight. So just bear that in mind when you're doing your diet. Anyway, this is how to set up your diet. If you've got any questions, fire it in the comments. If you want to see more nutrition vids, let me know. And as always, I hope that helps.